surprise, where the Rath Yatra was supposed to be held and where Prabhupada heard the sound and was so happy to hear, and all the devotees came. Right here, Srila Prabhupada smiled. It was a pastime. They were mentioning about, I think Shyam Sundar Prabhu was mentioning about the situation where the chariot was um, the steep hill, and chariot it's so hard for him to stop and start, something like that, right? So Prabhupada reminded him that his pastimes of Lord, it was pastimes of Lord Jagannath, where it did not move. So many elephants, so many things came. King tried, but it could not move. It could not move. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu simply touched with his forehead. The chariot pushed with forehead and it started moving. Prabhupada noticed some devotees were missing. Where are Yamuna and Janaki? He asked. The devotees told him that some hippies had handed out candy spiked with LSD, and that a few of the devotees had unwillingly accepted it and were just now recovering. Wow. This is a weird thing happened. Subala related how, after the festival, that they had traveled out on the freeway in their flower-bedded, canopy-covered truck carrying 30 devotees and the deities of Jagannath, Subhadra, and Balram. They had driven up through the mountains in what must have been one of the most unusual vehicles ever seen. After all the visitors departed, the deities remained in the house with Prabhupada and his servants. Prabhupada felt satisfied that his disciples had successfully held a Rath Yatra festival. Although untrained, they were sincere. They were sincere. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Bhaktivinoda Thakur would have been pleased to see the first American Rath Yatra. The whole world was in anxiety, Prabhupada explained to the devotees gathered in his room on that evening. Only in the spiritual world there was freedom from anxiety. Becoming free from all anxiety and returning to the spiritual world was the purpose of Krishna consciousness. And festivals like Rath Yatra made people Krishna conscious. Prabhupada had many ideas of festivals. If he had the money and the manpower, he said he could have a festival every day. There was no limit to Krishna consciousness. This Rath Yatra festival was another sign of the good reception for Krishna consciousness in the West. He wrote Brahmananda in New York. The house is situated in an exceptionally nice spot, and the house itself is aristocratic. So there is nothing to complain about the house and place. The only difficulty is that I cannot go to the temple on the account of the zigzag course of the road and crossing the mountains. Anyway, the devotees are coming here and the Rath Yatra festival was just performed with great pomp. More than 500 people followed the procession onto the beach. That's nice. And there were about 24 cars. They distributed thousands of chapatis, and at last Sri Jagannath, Subhadra, and Baldev kindly came here in our house and will stay here for 1 week and then return. That's a very beautiful thing. So it's interesting, Prabhupada, see all the devotees came here with Jagannath. So Jagannath is kind of, sick. No, it's not a sick. No, sorry. He's like Vrindavan. That Jagannath goes, when he goes for 1 week, it goes to Vrindavan, like with his intimate devotees to spend time. So all the devotees brought Jagannath Baldev Subhadra to Prabhupada, and Jagannath will stay there for 1 week. They will go back. Prabhupada noticed that a few devotees are missing. Where is Yamuna and Janaki? Devotees are saying some hippies distributed candies with LSD. How come they can do? Was it intense? They do intentionally, probably. I don't know how. So they were recovering from that. Then, sorry. Then Prabhupada said, whole world is anxiety. And the devotees gathered in his room. Prabhupada explained to the devotees, only in the spiritual world there is no anxiety. So it shows that festival of Rath Yatra made people Krishna consciousness, and if you had money, you would have done it every day. I wanted to share something. There's a temple in South India, in Karnataka, Udupi temple. They conduct wonderful festival every day, unbelievable. There's a procession and there's a elephant goes in the front. There's I think fireworks also they do. I forget if they do. It's a huge chariot, such a nice celebration. Anyone been to Udupi? No? See, this is what is shows how rich they are. So they can do festival every day. And how poor we cannot do here, even though we have so much of money. So Prabhupada was thinking, without his assistant, without being present there, the disciples did a nice festival. He was thinking, but his spiritual master would have been very happy if he would have seen, and of course he has seen it. So Prabhupada, he writes to Brahmananda about the situation that he's here, but he cannot go to the temple, but devotees are coming. Go ahead, you can read.
So the Prabhupada still talked of going to India. He had virtually made up his mind to go. The question now was when, and whether by the western route via Japan or the eastern route via New York. The gray skies and unreasonably cool temperatures of Stinson Beach were a disappointment. His health was still poor. He even spoke of dying. It didn't matter whether he died in America or in Vrindavan, he said. If Vaishnava dies in Vrindavan, the land where Krishna appeared, he's assured of joining Krishna in the spiritual world. Yet when Lord Chaitanya had traveled outside Vrindavan, his devotee Advaita had assured him, wherever you are is Vrindavan. To be always absorbed in thinking of Krishna was also Vrindavan. So if he were to pass away while preaching Krishna consciousness anywhere in the world, certainly he would still attain to the eternal Vrindavan in the spiritual sky. Nevertheless, Prabhupada wanted to go to Vrindavan. It was the best place to die or to recuperate. Besides, he had a plan for bringing his disciples to Vrindavan for training. He expressed this plan in a letter to Sumati Moraji, the owner of the Scindia Steamship Company. I'm thinking of going back to India as soon as I get sufficient strength. I am now considerably old. I'll be 72 years next September. But the work which I have begun in the Western world is not yet finished, and I require to train some of the American boys to preach this call all over the Western world. If I return to India, I'll have to take with me some of the boys for training. They are all nice boys to take up the training, so your cooperation in this connection is greatly needed. They've already allowed my men from India free passage. Similarly, if you allow free passage for some of my American disciples, they can come to India and take in training from me at Vrindavan. The idea is that in this old age, I do not know when death will overcome me. I wish to die in the last days of my life at Vrindavan. Prabhupada told Kirtananda, Hayagriva, and others that he would take them with him and show them the sacred places of Krishna's pastime. With the New York Temple's building fund, he would start his American house in Vrindavan. So Srila Prabhupada was still thinking of and talking about going to India, and he had in his mind made up his mind to go. But now the question was when and which route to go through. And because his health was still poor, and he was also speaking of dying. And it says that if a Vaishnava dies in Vrindavan, he is assured of joining Krishna in the spiritual world. But when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had traveled outside of Vrindavan, Advaita Prabhu assured him, saying that wherever you are is Vrindavan, meaning that wherever there's thinking of Krishna or the preaching of Krishna consciousness, that is considered as Vrindavan. So if Prabhupada were to pass away while preaching Krishna consciousness anywhere in the world, he would still attain the eternal spiritual sky. But nevertheless, Prabhupada wanted to go to Vrindavan, even if it was to go back to this spiritual world or to like to get better because he needed more hot heat. And he wanted to also train his disciples in Vrindavan. So he expressed the plan to Sumati Moraji, and he told her saying that when he has enough strength, he will return to India. But now he is old, and now he has work that is not finished. So he wants to train some of his American boys and to preach to preach Krishna consciousness all over the West, all over the world. So he wanted her to provide free passage for his disciples so they can travel with him to Vrindavan. And he also said that he wished to spend his last days of his life at Vrindavan. And he told many of his disciples, like Kirtananda and Hayagriva, saying that he wants to show them the sacred place of the Krishna pastimes. And with the New York Temple Fund, he wants to build his American house in Vrindavan.
I may come to Montreal, perform the opening ceremony of installation of Radha Krishna Vigraha. Then I may go back to India for 6 months. Yes, there is a program for construction of an American house for training preachers at Vrindavan. Vrindavan is the only solitary transcendental abode within this universe where Krishna consciousness automatically reveals. Therefore, I have a great hope to train some of my disciples for preaching work. Even in my absence, I am now old man and attacked with serious disease. I may be overcome by death at any moment. Therefore, I wish to leave some trained preachers so that they can do the work of Krishna consciousness in the Western world. That is my ambition. I hope you all pray to Krishna so that I may be able to execute my duty properly. When Govinda Dasi wrote Prabhupada that she was anxious to serve him again as she had in New Jersey, he replied that he would be going to India to try to construct an American house where you will be invited to come and live for all the days. Both your husband and yourself, you will find a very peaceful atmosphere in Vrindavan to worship Krishna. Waiting for sufficient strength to travel, Prabhupada continued his daily routine at Stinson Beach. One or two at a time, devotees would visit him from San Francisco. His morning walks on the beach, his sitting to take in the sunshine whenever it peeked through the cloud, and his evening of kirtan or reading in the living room remained undisturbed and peaceful.
So here Prabhupada has plan. He wants to go to India, but now he's going to Montreal. Who is there in Montreal? I forgot. He wrote the letter. He received the letter from Montreal. No. He received the letter from Montreal. I don't know who is there in Montreal. Montreal is in Canada, right? Yeah. AJ, is Montreal is not in Canada?
It is Canada.
Yep, it's Canada.
I may come to Montreal, perform the opening ceremony of installation of Radha Krishna Vigraha. Wow, already opening ceremony. I don't know who sent, I forgot that part. But he received the letter earlier. I saw that.
I don't think we read about Montreal temple opening, right? I think
not temple opening, but Montreal, he received a letter from Montreal, from whom I forgot. I thought it was, we can search it. We covered this Montreal part before a little bit. Now I may come to Montreal, perform the opening ceremony of installation. It means there's already something is going on. Then I may go to 6 months to India, construct the American house. He wanted to build a house where devotees in America, they can, they cannot take that much of austerity, he understands. So he wanted to prepare something different and train them. He has his own plans. But another thing is he never forgot his, he never forgot that he has very less time. So Prabhupada also looks like, he lived, can I use the word as bargaining kind of thing? Time, huh? Bargaining in the sense that with his life extension, a little bit he was always prepared. So, okay, if you all pray to Krishna to fulfill my desire, so I can do execute my duty properly. Govindasi again wanted to serve Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, you will come to India very soon. Serve me there, like that. So, so this way time went. Ajay, please go ahead.
You said me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Upendra. He would sit in his chair on the beach. He would sit in his chair on the beach side of the house. He liked to see us go in the water and play. At first, I felt a bit strange going in the water, knowing that Swamiji was watching me, but I went in and began washing my body. When I looked back at Swamiji, he was motioning from his chair, throwing his arms like he was splashing in the water. He kept doing it until finally I understood that he wanted me to splash and play in the water. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. As I began to splash and jump around in the water, he nodded his head and smiled broadly. Mukunda, I went on a walk on the beach with Swamiji, and when he sat down, I sat down opposite him. Then he asked me, "What is your definition of Krishna?" I said, "Krishna is God. He is the supreme being. Our duty is to worship and serve him." Swamiji seemed fairly satisfied, and then he said, "You must chant 64 rounds per day on your beads." I was shocked at this and could not answer. I did not know if there was any need to answer. I just kept looking at Swamiji, and he looked at me. After some time, he said, "Or at least you can chant 32 rounds a day." Still silence. I considered it to be very difficult to chant even 16 rounds. I was wondering how I could possibly chant 32 rounds. After some time, Swamiji said, "At the very least, you must chant 16 rounds every day." I said, "Yes, Swamiji." I knew that I could at least try to handle that much. Prabhupada told Kirtananda that he wanted to play the piano. The Jagannath deities who had sat atop the piano for a week were now back in San Francisco at the temple. But when Kirtananda and Upendra moved the piano away from the wall, they heard a thud of a falling object. "What is that?" Prabhupada asked. Kirtananda reached behind the piano and produced a framed canvas wrapped in a madras. He uncovered it and revealed a painting of Lord Nrsimhadev. "Why is this being hidden behind the piano?" Prabhupada asked. Janaki happened to be visiting at the time, and she confessed. While she had been arranging the house for Prabhupada's arrival, someone had sent the painting out to the house. She had found it and hidden it. It was ghastly, she explained. Lord Nrsimha was tearing open Hiranyakashipu's abdomen, and there was blood everywhere. That is a great picture, though. But so Swamiji's at the beach, and he's at the beach house with everybody, and he'd sit outside and watch the people play in the water, and he was taking joy in watching the devotees splash around and have fun and play in the water. And then Mukunda's sitting with him, and explains what Mukunda believes his definition of Krishna to be. And, he's God, he's the supreme being, and our job is to worship and serve him. And then he tells him, Prabhupada tells him, he said, "Yeah, chant 64 rounds a day." And Mukunda didn't know what to say to that. And he's like, "Okay, fine. How about 32? And then still Mukunda was stunned. And then finally Prabhupada goes, "Okay, how about 16? At least do 16. And then, Mukunda agreed to that. Then after that, Prabhupada, I guess, did Prabhupada wanted to play the piano? I don't know if Prabhupada played the piano or he wanted somebody to play the piano.
Kirtananda, no?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, it sounds like Prabhupada wanted to play.
Okay, yeah.
And so while they're moving the piano, the picture of Lord Nrsimhadev fell down to the ground that was hidden there by Janaki, and she didn't like it because it's the picture of Nrsimhadev with which king was it? It was probably which king is in that picture of Nrsimhadev is ripping open. I can't remember which. Prahlad's father, but I can't remember which king it is. but she didn't like that picture because it's, there's entrails and, blood everywhere and everybody's gathered around watching. So, she kept that picture hidden. Oh, it says it right there.
Hiranyakashipu's abdomen.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
Prahlad's father.
Yeah. And,
Hiranyakashipu.
but it is like the first time I saw that painting, it's like, Nrsimhadev has the king's entrails like draped around his neck like a garland, and Prahlad sitting there smiling and clapping as his father was just ripped open. If you don't know, I guess if you haven't heard the story that goes with it, it's it is a little bit of a shocking image at first, but yeah. So she kept it.
If it's shocking image, that's good. At least get some attention.
Yeah. But as a result of that, she hid it because she didn't want it hanging in the house because she thought it was a little too gruesome.
I don't know who had painted. Maybe Yadrani. Nice. You read second. You read.
Patiently, Prabhupada explained that although materialistic people feel sorry for Hiranyakashipu, devotees become ecstatic when they see Nrsimhadev tearing him apart. Hiranyakashipu, he said, had terrorized the whole universe and had usurped the throne of Indra, the king of heaven. Hiranyakashipu had even tortured his own 5-year-old son, Prahlad, a pure devotee of Lord Krishna. So there was nothing wrong in Lord Nrsimha's pastime. In fact, Hiranyakashipu, having been killed by the Lord, had been liberated. After directing the devotees to hang the picture on the wall, Srila Prabhupada sat down and played the piano. The devotees had seen Prabhupada beautifully play the Indian harmonium, his left hand pumping the bellows and his right hand fingering the keyboard, but never a piano. They weren't aware he knew how, but he expertly played the melodies of Indian bhajans. After about 5 minutes, he stopped. Some evenings, Prabhupada would speak or arrange debates. Although Kirtananda was constantly cautioning, when Prabhupada wanted to speak, it was impossible for any of his disciples to stop him. Sometimes he would ask Kirtananda to debate with one of the visiting devotees. One devotee would argue for the impersonalist or atheist position, and the other would argue for Krishna conscious position. Prabhupada would judge, but no sooner would the argument begin than Prabhupada would interrupt, take the position of the devotee, and defeat the atheistic or impersonalistic argument. The devotees loved it. Prabhupada was unable to confine himself either to the role of a silent judge or to that of a recuperating patient. Why do we concentrate on the impersonalist? Kirtananda asked. Why do we attack them so much? Why don't we concentrate our attack on the atheist? You say that because you are an impersonalist, Prabhupada answered angrily. On another occasion, Prabhupada explained that non-devotees who mislead the innocent public are demons and should be exposed. Kirtananda objected. If we call them demons, they will never come around. But they are demons, Prabhupada replied. So here, Prabhupada explains to the devotees about Lord Nrsimhadev's pastime, and he mentions that even though Hiranyakashipu was killed by Lord Nrsimhadev, he was actually liberated, and anyone basically they attain the Brahma Jyoti, and he asked the devotees to hang the picture on the wall, and Prabhupada sat down and played the piano. The devotees had never seen Prabhupada play the piano. They had seen him very beautifully play the Indian harmonium. So they were surprised when he played the melodies very expertly. And on some evenings, Prabhupada would arrange debates, and Kirtananda was always, cautioning Prabhupada, regarding his health because he was recuperating. But when Prabhupada wanted to speak, it was possible for any of the devotees to stop him. So he would ask some of the one devotee to argue on the impersonalist side or the atheist side, and one devotee to take the Krishna conscious position. And when that argument began, Prabhupada would join and take the position of the devotee who is arguing on the Krishna conscious position and basically defeat the atheistic or impersonalist. And he was not able to confine himself to be a silent judge or or a patient who is recovering. And one such argument is mentioned here, where Kirtananda asks, why do we concentrate more on the impersonalist, and why don't we concentrate attack on the atheists, the non-believers? And Prabhupada answers angrily, you say that because you are an impersonalist. And then on another occasion, Prabhupada explains that any non-devotees who mislead the innocent public, they are actually demons and should be exposed. And Kirtananda says that if you call them demons, they will never come around. And Prabhupada says that they are demons. So I think they only tell that part.
Sorry, Nipa, you can read.
Hare Krishna. But we can't call them demons, Swamiji. Yes, they are demons. Unless you understand this point, you will not make any advancement in Krishna consciousness. Can demons become devotees? Kirtanananda asked. Oh yes, Prabhupada answered. If they chant Hare Krishna and render service, even demons can become devotees. Most of the devotees had to remain in San Francisco hoping for a chance to visit Swamiji. From the few who you knew firsthand, they heard about Swamiji's plan to leave for India, perhaps never to return. It was painful to hear. His going almost to death, but then returning by Krishna's grace and rejoining them in San Francisco, yet being unable to stay with them as before. And now his plans of going to India may be forever. These activities intensified their concern and love for him. Devotees worried, speculating on whether they could carry on without Swamiji. One devotee suggested that perhaps one of the Swamiji's god brothers should come to America and fill in for Swamiji, and if the worst happened, take over the leadership of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. When the suggestion reached Prabhupada, he considered it without immediately replying. Mukunda, I was sitting alone with Swamiji in his room, and he was very grave and silent. His eyes were closed. Then suddenly tears began flowing from his eyes. He said in a choked voice, my spiritual master was no ordinary spiritual master. Then he paused for some time, and wiping the tears from his cheeks, he said in an even more choked voice, he saved me. And at that point, I began to understand the meaning of spiritual master and dropped all consideration of ever replacing Swamiji. After 2 days, Prabhupada said he would not call any of his god brothers to come and take care of his disciples. He said, if this person speaks just one word different from what I am speaking, there will be a great confusion among you. Actually, he said the idea was an insult to the spiritual master. Prabhupada said that he would initiate the new followers in San Francisco and ask that they come one at a time and stay overnight. Without performing any fire ceremonies, he simply talked with each new person, asking him to follow the 4 rules and chant 16 rounds a day. When the follower promised, Prabhupada initiated him, sitting on the bed while the disciples sat before him on the floor. Prabhupada would chant quietly on disciples' beats and then give him or her a spiritual name. So here Prabhupada says about demons that yes, they are demons. And then Kirtananda asked, can demons become devotees? And Prabhupada answered, yes, they can if they chant Hare Krishna mantra and render services. Demons can become transformed into devotees. But most of the devotees remained in San Francisco hoping to visit Swamiji. From the very few they heard about once they heard about Swamiji's plan to leave for India and never to return, it was painful to hear that. It was like, first Swamiji faced death and then returning by Krishna's grace and then rejoining in San Francisco and unable to stay with them. And now he plans to go to India. These activities kind of intensified devotees' concern and love for him. Devotees were worried. They were speculating whether Swamiji could continue the process of kirtana and everything. And one devotee suggested perhaps Swamiji's god brothers could be called and he could be taken, he can take the leadership and continue with the process that Swamiji had started with. And when the suggestion reached Prabhupada, he considered it, but he did not reply. And one day Mukunda was sitting alone with Swamiji in his room, and Swamiji was silent and grave. His eyes were closed, and then suddenly tears began flowing from his eyes. And Mukunda choked and said, "My spiritual master is not an ordinary master, spiritual master." He paused and then, wiping the tears from his cheeks, he said, even in choked voice, that uh, he he saved me. At that point, Mukunda understood that the meaning of spiritual master and dropped all the concentration of replacing Swamiji with one of his god brothers. And after 2 days, Prabhupada said he would not call any brothers to come and take over his disciples. He said if the person speaks one word different from, then there will be a lot of confusion from what has been already given, preached. He said the idea would be an insult to the spiritual master. Prabhupada said he would initiate new followers in San Francisco, and they can come and stay overnight without performing any fire ceremonies. Each person, he simply talked with each person, asking them to chant 16 rounds, and when the follower promised, Prabhupada would initiate them.
Nice. And they got the initiation with sacrifice for now. Later, probably they will have, I don't know. Prasanti?
One day, one of the new candidates for initiation came in very nervously and bowed down before Prabhupada. The boy didn't get up. "You can get up now," Prabhupada said. "So you want to be initiated?" The boy said yes and began chanting, not knowing what else to say. "I'll chant on your beads," Prabhupada said. After chanting for 10 minutes, he returned them, saying, "Your name is Aniruddha." "What does that mean?" the boy said. "He is the grandson of Krishna." "Do you have any questions?" Aniruddha couldn't think of anything. He had already forgotten his name, and Prabhupada said he could go. Later, Prabhupada called for Aniruddha, but Aniruddha didn't know that it was his name. Being called Aniruddha, Kirtanananda said and looked at him, "Swamiji is calling you." Another boy who came out received the name Uddhava. The next day, as Prabhupada was sitting in the yard, he called Kirtanananda Upendra Uddhava. He wanted to read them a verse he had encountered while studying Srimad Bhagavatam. Kirtanananda and Upendra came and sat at Prabhupada's feet. "Oh, where is Uddhava?" Prabhupada asked. Upendra told him that Uddhava had gone up to the hills to look at the cows and chant to them. Upendra thought that Swamiji will be pleased to hear that his new disciple had climbed the hills just to chant to the cows, but Prabhupada shook his head unhappily. Restlessness. He had wanted the new boy to hear the verse. Jayati Jayati Devo Devaki Nandano Sau Jayati Jayati Krishno Vrishni Vamsa Pradeepa Jayati Jayati Megha Syamala Komalango Jayati Jayati Prithvi Bharanaso Mukunda. Prabhupada gave the translation. All glories to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as the son of Devaki. All glories to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the light of Vrishni dynasty. All glories to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose bodily luster is like that of a new cloud, and whose body is as soft as lotus flowers. All glories to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who walks on the planet Earth to deliver the world from the scorn of demons and who can offer liberation to everyone. After repeating the Sanskrit and translation, he told them they could return to their duties. So new people came to Prabhupada for initiation, and one person bowed to him and was not even getting up. So Prabhupada asked him to get up, And then he started chanting because he doesn't know what to talk. And immediately Prabhupada gave him his name as Aniruddha. And he asked the meaning, which is the grandson of Krishna. And then Aniruddha, because it was a new name, he couldn't remember it. Even though Swamiji was calling with his name later, he couldn't go. And Kirtanananda asked him that Swamiji was calling him. And later, Swamiji called Kirtanananda, Upendra, and Uddhava to explain a Srimad Bhagavatam text. And when he learned that Uddhava went up the hills to chant to the cows, he said, it is restlessness. So I did not understand this, Prabhu. And then,
Which one?
Why he said restlessness?
Restlessness means, they're supposed to stay and listen to spiritual master serve. But restlessness means when when you're not disciplined, when your mind is flickering.
Okay.
So that's what he meant to say.
Okay. And then he gave the translation of the verse, saying that it is all saying all glories to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the son of Devaki, who is born in Vrishni dynasty, and who has the bodily lustre of that of a new cloud, and is as soft as lotus flowers, and who can deliver anyone from the scorns of demons and offer liberation to everyone.
Nice. And because it's much expected from the devotees, disciples, to be very obedient, to very disciplined. You cannot act like just again ordinary person. Once this we took initiation is you should be a little serious, and you cannot go just here and just like that when Prabhupada is there also. Anyway, so he is expecting that devotees should listen. And if you're not listening, if you do not have a desire for listening, then you will never grow. So, yeah, who is there? Sridhari?
Prabhupada told Kirtananda he had definitely decided to go to India via New York as soon as possible. Kirtananda packed Swamiji's things and drove Swamiji down to San Francisco to spend the night at the temple. They would leave the next morning. The temple and even Prabhupada's apartment were very hectic that night, with many devotees and guests wanting to see Prabhupada and dozens of people wanting initiation. When Kirtananda advised Prabhupada not to exert himself by going down for the evening program, Prabhupada insisted on at least going and sitting during the kirtan. When he entered the storefront, the devotees immediately stopped their kirtan, dropping down to offer obeisances. There was a hush. He commanded a new reverence. This might be the last time they would see him. They watched him during the kirtan as he played his kartals, singing with them for the last time. The uninitiated wanted to accept him as their spiritual master tonight, before it was too late. Srila Prabhupada asked for the microphone. No one had expected him to speak. Kirtananda, the only person in a position to restrain him, said nothing and sat before him like the others, submissive and expectant. Prabhupada spoke quietly about his mission. Under the order of his spiritual master, he was bringing Lord Chaitanya's movement to America. And Krishna had kindly sent him so many sincere souls. I have a few children in India from my family days, he said, but you are my real children. Now I am going to India for a little while. Everyone fixed his attention on Swamiji as he sat before them, leaning against the madras covered wall, speaking softly. Suddenly, the door opened and Ravindra Swarupa unhappily entered. Everyone knew that Ravindra Swarupa wanted to leave Krishna consciousness. He had not taken his initiation vow seriously. He wanted to move on. He did not want a spiritual master anymore. The other devotees had discouraged him, but he had persisted. They were incredulous. How could he do such a thing on the night before Swamiji's departure? Ravindra Swarupa fell to the floor to offer obeisances, but he didn't rise up. Instead, he began crawling on his hands and knees towards Prabhupada. Ravindra usually had a cavalier manner, enhanced by a handsome face, long tousled hair, and a beard. But now he was wretched and sobbing and crazy. He crawled towards Prabhupada, who sat but 2 steps off the floor on the simple redwood dais. Prabhupada looked at him with compassion. Come here, my boy. Ravindra crawled up to the steps and placed his bushy head on Prabhupada's lap. Moved, the devotees watched as Prabhupada stroked Ravindra's head, and the boy cried and cried. So here we see Srila Prabhupada has decided to go to India, and then he conveys the same to Kirtananda Maharaj. He says that he wanted to go to India via New York as soon as possible. And then Kirtananda Maharaj, he packed Prabhupada's things, and then he brought Srila Prabhupada from Stilton Beach to the San Francisco temple to spend the night at the temple. And then the plan was, after spending the night at the temple, they would leave the next day. So that evening, I mean, the temple and even Srila Prabhupada's apartment was like very much packed, and then the schedule was very hectic, as there were many devotees and guests who wanted to see Prabhupada before he departs to India. And then there were many people, dozens and dozens of many people who wanted to take initiation for him. So then Kirtananda Maharaj, he advised Srila Prabhupada not to strain himself and then go down for the evening program. But Prabhupada said at least he would like to go and sit for the kirtan. So when Prabhupada he entered the storefront, all the devotees immediately stopped kirtan, and then there was a silence. And then everybody, like, they were looking, they were watching Srila Prabhupada during the kirtan as he played his kartals. So because they were like feeling separation, I mean, kind of like this would be the last time maybe before Srila Prabhupada goes to India. And then Srila Prabhupada asked for the microphone. No one expected him to speak. Kirtananda Maharaj was the only person who could resist him. But again, as soon as Srila Prabhupada asked for the microphone, even he did not say anything, but he sat before him like others. He was like very submissive and expectant. And then Srila Prabhupada spoke about the mission, like how under the order of his spiritual master, he was bringing Lord Chaitanya's movement to America. And then he was like very grateful, saying that Krishna had kindly sent him so many sincere souls. So he mentioned that he has some few children in India from his family. But again, he said all his new American disciples, they are his real children. So like everybody were hearing to Srila Prabhupada, and then with fixed attention. And then suddenly the door opened, and then there was a Ravindra Swarupa. He one devotee, he entered unhappily. So everybody knew that Ravindra Swarupa was not happy in Krishna consciousness, and he wanted to leave Krishna consciousness. And he did not want any spiritual master. But other devotees, I mean, tried to help him, but again, he was not listening to anyone. But at least they thought, at least just before Srila Prabhupada left, they did not want him to create any big issue. So as soon as Ravindra Swarupa, he entered the storefront, he fell to the floor, he offered obeisances. And then he began to crawl towards Srila Prabhupada. Usually he was a very handsome face. I mean, he had a beard and a cavalier manner. I mean, but his demeanor was little different that day. He was like he was crying, and then he was little crazy. He crawled towards Srila Prabhupada, and then when Srila Prabhupada looked at him with compassion, "Come here, my boy," when he said that, immediately he went to Srila Prabhupada, and then he put his head on Srila Prabhupada's lap and started crying. And he cried and cried.
Such a
Yes. Oh, Sridhar is not here today.
Such an emotional, how loving is the spiritual life. What's wrong, my son? You don't have to be so unhappy. Ravindra bawled out, "I want," he sobbed out, "reach God directly, without anyone in between." Prabhupada continued to pat and stroke the boy's head. "No, you continue to stay with us if possible. Don't be a crazy fellow." Ravindra's weeping subsided, and Prabhupada continued, speaking both to Ravindra and to the emotion-struck group in the room. I'm an old man, he said. I may die at any moment. But please, you all carry on this Sankirtan moment. You have to become humble and tolerant. As Lord Chaitanya says, be as humble as a blade of grass and more tolerant than a tree. You must have enthusiasm and patience to push on this Krishna conscious philosophy. Suddenly Ravindra's tears were gone. He jumped up, dejectedly stood, hesitating for a moment, and then hurried out of the door, banging it behind him. Ravindra Sarup's dramatic exit from Krishna consciousness shocked the devotees. Prabhupada sat still and continued speaking to them gravely, asking them to stick together and push on the movement for their own benefit and for others. Whatever they had learned, he said they should repeat. They realized, perhaps for the first time, that they were part of a preaching mission, a movement. They were together not just for good times and good vibrations. They had loving obligations to Swamiji and Krishna. Prabhupada returned to his apartment, which soon became chaotic. It was late. Many people wanted initiation. Mukunda, Jayanand, and other temple leaders tried to determine which candidates were sincere. They selected candidates half a dozen at a time and allowed them into Prabhupada's room. Prabhupada sat behind his little desk, chanted on each person's beads, and returned them, giving each person a spiritual name. Kirtananda requested him to stop. Further initiations could be done to the male, but Prabhupada said he would continue initiation whoever was present. Mukund and Jayananda set priorities. Some persons had been waiting months to be initiated and were obviously sincere. Others would have to be turned away. So this is the condition Ravindra finally decided to go. Even the Prabhupada's pleading in one sense that I don't know why he wanted to say that he will go directly to God without anyone between. Maybe he had some reached God directly. So anyway, he left by banging the door. It has shocked everybody. So he realized that people realize that now they're realizing they're part of the preaching mission movement, not just in good vibration. There is responsibility, their obligation to Swamiji and Krishna, and they need to work together. Prabhupada asked everyone to work together and push this movement, tolerant and patience. And Prabhupada returned to the apartment. There are so many devotees wanted to get initiated. Jayanand, Prabhu, and Mukunda, they were working on who should be sent. So Prabhupada gave half a dozen. Then still at the same time, they wanted to let others go, but Prabhupada said, whoever is there, he will initiate. So Mukund and Jayanand set priorities who have been waiting for months to be initiated. They got the others will be turned away. Yeah, AJ, you can read.
John Carter. At the end of the lecture, I was sure that I wanted to be initiated. And even though there was some talk of being initiated by mail, I knew I wanted to have that personal connection with my spiritual master and be spiritually initiated by him, personally accepted. I ran up to Mukunda and said, how many are on the list? I would like to get on the list. He said, well, Swamiji isn't really taking them in any particular order. We're just trying to pick out the most sincere people. Please put my name on the list. I said, I am really sincere. I really want to get initiated. So he put me down and took the list up to Swamiji, and Swamiji began calling for people one by one. After the third person, when my name wasn't called, I became a little worried. Then after the fourth person, I was really sitting on edge. Then when they called the fifth person and it wasn't me, I was totally destroyed. I felt, oh, he's going to India and then he's going back to Krishna. I just lost my chance. This is it. There's no use in me living anymore. So, there you go. I was trying to make it to the coat rack and get my coat and get out before anybody could see me crying. I hadn't started crying, but I could tell it was coming. A couple of people patted me on the back and said, "It's all right. He can write you a letter and tell you your name." And all I could think was, yeah, the way he was talking tonight, it may never happen. I could barely stand up. I went outside and started walking across the parking lot towards Golden Gate Park. I was kind of heading towards the Golden Gate Bridge. I thought, I'll just jump off. I hadn't been there long enough to understand that if you commit suicide, you have to become a ghost. I just figured my life was useless. I got halfway across the parking lot when the idea struck me. What if he decided to take one more and I was out here somewhere? Thought filled me with so much hope that I turned and ran back to the temple. And just as I walked in the front of the temple, Janaki ran down and said, "He will take one more." And she grabbed somebody else and ran up the stairs. I felt my knees start to collapse and tears came jutting out of my eyes. Harsharani was standing there and she grabbed me by the arm and said, "Come with me." She raced up the stairs, pulling me to the top, and burst into Swamiji's room without even knocking. So, yeah, John was a little bit of a wreck. He wanted, Swamiji was talking about, hey, they were saying we can just initiate people via letter. And he felt that, for him, he needed that connection, that personal connection that he would only get by being initiated in person. And, so he got on the list and, as they're going through the list, the first, third, or second, third, fourth, fifth person's called and it's still not him. So he freaks out and leaves. He starts crying and he contemplates going to jump off the Golden Gate Bridge. But as he's walking there, he says to himself, he said, well, wait, they weren't done yet. What if they called me and I'm out here trying to jump off a bridge? So he ran back to the temple. And, when he got back to the temple, they said, hey, we can take one more. And it wasn't him. They grabbed somebody else and he started crying and he was about to collapse. And that's when Harsharani saw him and said, "Now you're coming with me," and dragged him up the stairs and burst into Prabhupada's room. I guess to make sure that John Carter got initiated that day.
Yeah. See, this is what is called initiation. One should be very desperate. Initiation is not a joke. One should be very, so desperate like him. That showed the right mood actually. Understand the urgency, how this is genuine. I think you didn't read this one actually, right? Swamiji looked up. Swamiji looked up with amazement. She says, "Swamiji, you have to initiate this boy." I was just bawling and Swamiji began to laugh. He said, "It's all right, don't cry. Everything will be all right." He chanted on my boots and gave me the name Jivananda. Very nice. Okay. Prasanthi, please read.
The next morning, Prabhupada had to leave his affectionate followers. Several cars filled with devotees accompanied him to the San Francisco airport. Nandarani. Some were sincere and some were crying because it was appropriate to cry when the spiritual master leaves. Actually, none of us really knew much about what the spiritual master was. Janaki mischievously stole the ticket and passport from Prabhupada's hand. "Now you can't go," she said. "That's all right," he smiled. "I already have my boarding ticket. I am Indian. They will let me into my own country." Prabhupada turned to his adoring followers gathered close around him at the boarding gate. "Actually, I have only one desire, and whoever does this will please me very much. Now, I have a temple in New York, in Montreal, and a temple in San Francisco, but I do not have any temple in Los Angeles." He told them to remain in Krishna consciousness and to please preach. They watched as he turned and walked through the gate, his cane in one hand, boarding pass in the other. In New York, there was hardly time for sadness. Srila Prabhupada telegraphed Sri Krishna Pandit that his arrival in Delhi would be on July 24th at 7:30 a.m. and that Sri Krishna Pandit should prepare Prabhupada's quarters at the Chippivada temple. In the telegram, Prabhupada mentioned his intention to consult a physician in Delhi and then go to Vrindavana. He was anxious to return to Vrindavana. The day before his departure, Prabhupada wrote to Sumati Muraji in reply to his last letter. She had agreed to provide free steamship passage to India for him, but not for his disciples. As I had arranged for your passage to America, she had written, I think it is my duty to see that you return back to India safely, more so, more so due to your indifferent health. But she would not allow free passage for any disciples. So next morning, Prabhupada left with his disciples, and many disciples accompanied him. And some were crying because they were Prabhupada was departing to India, and then Prabhupada told all his followers that he has only one desire. He has temple in New York, Montreal, and San Francisco, and he wanted a temple in Los Angeles also. And he told them to remain in Krishna conscious and preach. And they all watched as he entered with his boarding pass. And he also sent a message to a telegram to Sri Krishna Pandit about his arrival in Delhi, and he asked him to arrange a quarters for him in Chippivada, and also he wanted to consult a physician in Delhi before going to Vrindavana. Can you move down some, Prabhuji? And it also talks about what Sumati Muraji has written. She is not allowing any free passage to the disciples, but she arranged a passage for him. That's all.
Thank you. Nipa, please read.
On July 20th, Prabhupada wrote, I am feeling too much to return to Vrindavana, to the lotus feet of Vrindavana, Behari, Lord Krishna, and therefore I have decided to return to India immediately. I would have liked to return via sea, as you have so kindly offered me passage in your letter, but in my precarious state of health that is not possible. So by the mercy of Krishna and through one friend here, somehow or other, I have received air passage, and I'm expecting to leave here for New Delhi on Saturday next, reaching the Palam airport on 24th instant at 7:30 a.m. From there, I shall proceed to Brindavana after a few days' rest in Delhi. I can understand that at present you cannot allow free passage to my disciples, but if you don't do so, at least in the near future, then my mission will be half finished or failure. I'm just enclosing one letter of appreciation for one of my principal students, Bruce Shaw, from Professor Davis Heron, and another from Professor Roberts of New York University. I think these letters will convince you how much my movement of Krishna consciousness is taking ground in the Western world. The holy name of Hare Krishna is now being chanted not only in this country but also in England, Holland, and Mexico that I know of. It may be very more widespread. I have sent you one gramophone record, which I hope you may have received by this time. You will enjoy to learn how Krishna's holy name is being appreciated by the Western world. Achyutananda told Prabhupada he wanted to go to India to study intensively, gather experiences, and become attached to Krishna. He had heard Prabhupada say that one could become more Krishna conscious in 2 days in Vrindavana than in 10 years in America. Do you think I'll be able to go? Achyutananda asked. Rest assured, Prabhupada told him we will meet again in Braja. Devotees had been asking Satya Swarupa to transfer his civil service job to Boston and open a Krishna conscious center there. They had also asked Rupanuga to do the same in buffalo. Satyaswarupa and Rupanuga approached Prabhupada to find out what he wanted. He became very pleased. Shubala was going to open a center in Santa Fe, he said, and Dhyanananda was going to Los Angeles. Hare Krishna mantra is like a big cannon, he told them. Go and sound this cannon so everyone can hear it and it will drive away Maya. So here Prabhupada in the reply to the letter says that he's on July 20th, he wrote a reply saying that he wants to return to Vrindavana to the lotus feet of Vrindavana Behari Lord Krishna and has decided to return to India immediately. Uh, he would like to return via sea but, as offered, but considering his state of health, it is not possible. So, by the mercy of God and through one friend, he could receive air passage and was expecting to leave for New Delhi on next Saturday, reaching Palam Airport on 24th at 7:30 a.m. From there, he shall proceed to Vrindavana after taking few days of rest in Delhi. Uh, he says he can understand that free passage is not allowed to the disciples, but he says if you don't do so, at least in the near future, my mission will be half finished or failure. He's enclosing a letter of appreciation for one of the principal students, who's Bruce Shar from Professor Davis Heron and another from Professor Roberts of New York. In these letters, it will convince how much movement of Krishna consciousness is taking ground in the Western world. The holy name of Krishna conscious is the Krishna mantra is being chanted not only in England, in this country, US, but also it's spreading in England, Holland, and Mexico. And it's a widespread. And he's also sent a gramophone record of the same. Achyutananda told Prabhupada that he also wanted to go to Vrindavana and gather the experiences, as he has heard that staying 10 years in America compared to 2 days is like, you gain more of experiences and knowledge. So he asked, can he be able to go to Vrindavana? Prabhupada said, we will meet again in Braja. Devotees had been asking Satyaswarupa to transfer the civil service job to Boston and open the Krishna Conscious Center. They also asked Rupa Nuga to do the same in Buffalo, and Shubala was to open in Santa Fe, and Dhyananand was supposed to go to Los Angeles and he told them, go sound this cannon like Hare Krishna mantra so everyone can hear and be away from Maya.
Wow. We didn't hear this, but left and right, the centers are, Prabhupada is sending everybody to open the centers, how nice, wonderful. I think one more devotee can read. Who wants to read? Maybe let's see the Sridhari, Srikar can read.
The devotees wanted to ask, but what if we don't return? They were fearful. What if Krishna kept Swamiji in Vrindavan? What if Swamiji never returned? How could they survive against Maya? But Swamiji had already assured them that whatever Krishna consciousness he had given them would be enough, even if he never returned. Just 30 minutes before he had to leave for the airport, Prabhupada sat in his room chanting on the beats of a girl who had asked to be initiated. Then, as he had done many times before, he left his apartment, went downstairs, crossed the courtyard, and entered the storefront. Sitting on the old carpet, he spoke quietly and personally. I may be going, but Guru Maharaj and Bhaktivinoda are here. He looked towards the paintings of his spiritual master and Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I have asked them to kindly take care of all of you, my spiritual children. The grandfather always takes care of children much better than the father, so do not fear. There is no question of separation. The sound vibration fixes us up together, even though the material body may not be there. What do we care for this material body? Just go on chanting Hare Krishna, and we'll be packed up together. You'll be chanting here, and I'll be chanting there, and this vibration will circulate around this planet. Several devotees rode with Prabhupada in the taxi. Brahmananda in the front with the driver, Rai Rama and Ketananda in the back beside their spiritual master. When Ketananda sees Vrindavan, Prabhupada said, he will not be able to understand how I could have left that place and come to this place. It is so nice. There are no motor cars there like here, rushing whoosh whoosh and smelling. Only there is Hare Krishna. Everybody always chanting. Thousands and thousands of temples. I'll show you, Kitananda. We will walk all about there and I will show you. Brahmananda began to cry and Prabhupada patted him on the back. I can understand that you are feeling separation, he said. I am feeling for my Guru Maharaj. I think this is what Krishna desires. You may be coming there to me and be training up, and we will and we will spread this movement all over the world. Rai Rama, you will go to England. Brahmananda, you want to go to Japan or Russia? That's all right. So here we see the devotees wanted to ask, like, what if you do not return Prabhupada? They wanted to ask, but no, they were all fearful. So they were all thinking, like, what if Srila Prabhupada does not return? How could they survive against Maya? But Srila Prabhupada said that whatever Krishna consciousness he had given them, that is sufficient, even if he did not return. So about 30 minutes before he had to leave for the airport, Prabhupada sat in his room chanting on the beats of a girl who wanted to be initiated from him. So after that, he went downstairs and he entered the storefront. And then, so sitting in the storefront on the old carpet, he spoke very quietly and very personally. He said that he may be going, but his Guru Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Bhaktivinoda Thakur are there. And then looking towards the paintings of his spiritual master and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Prabhupada said he had asked them to kindly take care of all his American disciples. And then he says that the grandfather always takes care of the children much better than the father. So there is no need to fear. And he mentioned that the sound vibration is so powerful, it fixes everybody together. It binds everybody together. Physically, they may be separated, but as long as one is chanting Hare Krishna, they are all together. He said he'll be chanting in India, and then the others, his disciples can be chanting in America, and then the sound vibration will circulate all around the planet. And then there were many devotees who rode with Prabhupada in taxi. Brahmananda Maharaj, he sat in the front beside the driver, and Rai Rama and Ketananda Maharaj, they sat with Srila Prabhupada in the back. So, and then Prabhupada says that when Ketananda sees Vrindavan, he'll not be able to understand how Srila Prabhupada left that place. It is so nice in Vrindavan. Like, everybody is only chanting Hare Krishna. And there are thousands and thousands of temples in Vrindavan. So he was just sharing. And then he says, okay, one day he'll show Ketananda Maharaj Vrindavan, and then he'll walk there and then he'll show everybody, Ketananda Maharaj, how Vrindavan is. And then Brahmananda Maharaj began to cry, and then Prabhupada patted him on his back, and then he said he can understand that he's feeling separation. The same way how Srila Prabhupada feels separation from his Guru Maharaj. But again, he said this is what is Krishna's desire. You maybe in future Brahmananda Maharaj may come to India, get training from Srila Prabhupada there, and then spread the movement all around the world. And then he says, Rai Rama, do you want to go to England? And he asked Brahmananda Maharaj, where does he want to go, to Japan or Russia? And he said, that's all right.
Haribol, Hare Krishna. This is such an inspiring, isn't it? How it is, devotees are so inspired with spiritual spark, and left and right the temples are opening, even in spite of Prabhupada's health. Remember, so that's the beauty of relationship between spiritual master and disciples. All the devotees, feel by his presence, by his touch, his association. They feel so inspired. They could opening for his satisfaction. Just as he says, and they are going and opening all the centers all over. It's 8:44. We will end it here. I want to thank you so much for joining. We'll reconvene tomorrow again. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Prabhupada ki jai. Prabhupada Lilamrita ki jai. Thank you.